this is Alexandra Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. Special report tonight. As President Trump promised, he released the JFK files. There are 30,000 pages that now the media is going through to try to, and they're also trying to figure out how they're going to spin this. USA Today, a biased liberal reporting outlet, they've already said that, oh, there's nothing new here to see. There's no new conclusions. It's all going to say that Lee Harvey Oswald was a part of this, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. There's also some speculation that President Lyndon, well, he wasn't the president at the time, but Lyndon Baines Johnson was a part of the assassination of JFK. And a lot of those files are going to come out, and we may get proof that LBJ had something to do with this. As you know, that horrific day in 1963, some people saw JFK's head blow up, and we saw the blood all over his wife, Jackie, at the time. And it was, of course, a very horrific moment. And when JFK was pronounced dead, she was still wearing the dress with all of his blood, all of his guts all over her. And her people said to her, First Lady, would you like to change your clothes? And she says, no, I want the people to see. I want them to see what happened. I want them to see that my husband is dead, that this is his blood all over the place. And actually, her outfit today is archived, and nobody has even looked at the DNA or done a forensic thing on her dress, a forensic experiment, on her dress to find out the DNA of it, the blood, the gunshot wound, everything. I mean, there's so much on that dress that we, the people, don't know about. But again, the media right now is trying to comb through all these files, and I'll be honest with you, I have not seen those files yet, but we will be looking through those files throughout this 2-hour block to see what has curtailed from the JFK assassination. And as you know, that was a big campaign promise that President Trump made. He made it in 2017, actually. He released half of the files. And last week when he was on Cheryl Atkinson's program, he said, I wish that I would have released it all, and I'm going to release them all. So he did. In addition to him releasing the MLK files and the RFK files. As you know, that was the biggest thing why RFK Jr. became the HHS secretary, is he wanted to know what happened to his father, because his father was assassinated. And also, President Trump is going to be looking into the file of what happened to him in July 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania. There are a lot of questions about what happened to him and the kid that was involved, if it was an inside job. We still don't have answers. We still don't know a lot about the killer, and things need to be answered. So thank God that this was brought out today. Again, they are combing through the 30,000 pages, and we will start to comb through them as we get them through the 2 hours, and of course, throughout the entire week. Another big news thing that happened today was President Trump and President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, had a huge phone call. It was for hours. It was at 10 a.m. and they didn't finish till probably 12:30, probably 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a long conversation, but the conversation was very important. They both agreed to an immediate ceasefire on all energy and infrastructure, with an understanding that they will be working quickly to have a complete ceasefire and ultimately end the war, to this very horrible war between Russia and Ukraine. They also discussed the Middle East, because as you know, Russia has an oil agreement with Iran. Russia relies on Iran a lot for their oil. But as you know, there's a lot of terrorists in Iran, huge terrorist regime. As we know, Iran with Qatar was responsible for the horrendous acts on October 7th. And both President Trump and Vladimir Putin both agreed that they do not want Iran to invade or hurt or try to assassinate any Israelis or go in and try to blow up Israel. Because as you know, Iran has massive nuclear weapons. And as you know, President Trump, he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. And Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu has come to our nation many times, 5 times, and explained how Iran is the ultimate enemy. And that is the consensus that President Trump and Vladimir Putin said today, that Iran is the enemy. We do not want Iran attacking Israel. We do not want any more problems in the Middle East. And we need to work together against Turkey, against the Arab nations that have terrorist organizations. And we need to work, and President Trump emphasized today, we must work with our biggest ally, Israel. We must stand and support them. And Vladimir Putin agreed. He says, yes, we will stand and support Israel as well. And that was very, very important. Another breaking news tonight was Space Crew 7 returned to Earth today. at 5:57, a few minutes before 6 p.m. with International Space Station astronauts. There was 2 astronauts. They were only supposed to go up there for 8 days. They ended up being up there for 9 months. They were trapped up there. Biden and Kamala Harris, they couldn't get the job done. It took President Trump and Elon Musk with Space Force, SpaceX, to go up there and get those astronauts and bring them down to safety down in Florida, which they did today. They flew right into the Gulf of America, which we love. And we thank President Trump and Elon Musk for that. The astronauts have already thanked President Trump and Elon Musk for that. And of course, as the days go on, we will be hearing about their journey. We'll be hearing about how it was being up there 9 months with, thinking they're never going to come down, and how they feel now that they are back on Earth, because they said that it was probably going to be a problem with the gravity to bring them down safe and sound. But Elon Musk got the job done. President Trump got the job done. And we are so happy that these astronauts are back after being stuck up in space for 9 months instead of 8 days. Something also happened. We passed the spending bill. Congratulations to Chuck Schumer. We'll put that slide up right now. Congratulations to Chuck Schumer for doing the right thing. To quote, guts and courage, the big tax cuts, LA fire fix, debt ceiling bill, and so much more is coming. We should all work together in that very dangerous situation. A non-pass would be a country destroyer. Approval will lead us to new heights. Again, really good and smart move by Senator Schumer. This could lead to something big for the USA, a whole new direction and beginning DJT. Now, why the heck did Senator Chuck Schumer decide not to shut the government, to go with President Trump, to follow his lead here? And actually, as a result, a lot of the progressives in the Democrat Party are PO'd at Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer actually canceled his book tour because of this. But as we know, Chuck Schumer didn't want to be responsible for the government shutdown. The Democrats have nothing. They have no message. They know that they had to fall in line with President Trump, because if not, it would have been terrible. It would have been completely terrible. And it would not have gone well at all for Chuck Schumer, for the Democrats. And of course, for we the people, we needed this bill to be passed. And again, Chuck Schumer, he listened to President Trump. He knew that he knew that if he would have shut down the government, it would have been so bad for him. So bad for him. And then we have FBI Director Kash Patel is issuing a subpoena. Let's put up that slide. FBI Director Kash Patel is issuing a subpoena for Judge Juan Merchan's daughter's company to investigate any financial gains tied to her father's persecution of President Trump. FBI Director Kash Patel said, I'm calling for the subpoena to be issued to Judge Merchan's daughter's company, which made over $15 million from the illicit information coming out of her father's courtroom. I want to know the bank records because money doesn't lie. I want to know how deep it is, how much of it went to the family, and how much of it is growing to the family after the false conviction. And then we need to investigate the FEC actual violations that this judge and his family his family conducted, because he should never have been overseeing the trial to begin with. I agree. There's also the illicit campaign money flowing through, and the unconstitutional due process violations are only the beginning. So America is calling for accountability of our judicial system, and Congress is the only lever that has it. I'm hoping for 1 or 2 brave members of Congress that I'm talking to issue those subpoenas ASAP. FBI Director Kash Patel. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know which congressman Kash Patel is talking to. Some people said that he should let former Congressman Matt Gaetz be the special prosecutor, because Congressman Matt Gaetz is an attorney, former attorney, still has his law license, that he should be the special prosecutor here. But I agree. What Judge Merchan did is illegal. What his daughter did was illegal. He should not have been the judge against President Trump. And as you know, it was a political pawn to try to put President Trump in jail for many, many years, call him a convicted felon. They convicted him on 34 false accounts. It was actually one false account that was rewritten 34 times. And as you know, Attorney General Pam Bondi has sued the state of New York. She is suing Letitia James. She's suing Alvin Bragg, and she's suing the governor, Kathy Hochul, for all the crimes that they've committed to their state. I personally can't even go to New York City anymore. Even as a Jewish person, I can't go to New York City anymore, or New York in general, because it's so scary. I'll go where Lee Zeldin lives. I'll go to upstate New York. But New York City, Manhattan, where I used to live, heck no. So I thank Pam Bondi for suing the state of New York and the state of Illinois. Another state that I have reached out to Pam Bondi to sue is the state of Maryland, and also to charge the governor, Wes Moore, the attorney general, Anthony Brown, as well as the city mayor, city mayor of Baltimore City, Brandon Scott. And we'll pull up that, how Maryland fought hard to win the new, there we go. This is with the Turnbull Brockmeyer Law Group. They're a great law group. I've done a lot of work with them over the years. Maryland fought hard to win the new FBI headquarters and then lost it all. 7,500 jobs gone, billions in economic growth wiped out. Trump just canceled the entire project, keeping the FBI in Washington, D.C., which I agree President Trump should do. Was this about national security or political payback for Maryland's leadership attacking him? That's a good question. And again, we will have our repeated guest, elected official Tim Fazanbaker, to answer that question. But I agree with President Trump here that the FBI headquarters and the DOJ should both be together. DOJ is in Washington, D.C. Why does the FBI have to be in Maryland? And President Trump, he also, made a note that he kind of exaggerated. He said, the FBI headquarters are 3 hours away from the DOJ, which of course is an exaggeration, but he's right. I mean, they should be side by side. And then this is a follow-up to that. Publicly criticized Trump's policies, calling his administration a threat. We'll put up that slide. There we go. And this, again, with that Governor Wes Moore, publicly criticized Trump's policies, calling the administration a threat to economic stability. After a White House meeting, Moore wrapped up attacks, claiming Trump's leadership was unpredictable and damaging. Attorney General Anthony Brown led multiple lawsuits against Trump, including fighting mass fringe of federal employees, sued Trump's administration over the dismantling of the Department of Education. Maryland played hardball. Did they think there wouldn't be consequences? The FBI headquarters reversal could be political retaliation. Why did Trump cancel the move? Yeah, why did Trump cancel the move? And as I said, it's probably because Attorney General Anthony Brown and Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott, as well as Governor Wes Moore, they continue to combat President Trump and his DOJ and his FBI and DHS and ICE every single day by expanding on Section 8 housing, which harvests illegals, by the way. They're doing that in Fort Howard, which our elected official Tim Fazanbaker will talk about at the bottom of the hour. And also the fact that Governor Wes Moore continues to lose money for his state, and people are leaving the state of Maryland because of him. But what Wes Moore doesn't understand is just because he's Black doesn't mean that Thomas Ullman and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem aren't coming after him. And we're going to have the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, come after him, because guess what? The Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge needs to be rebuilt, and the federal government, they're not going to pay for all of that new bridge. Heck no, that is not President Trump's full responsibility to pay for that bridge. Is the shipping company's insurance, which I know for a fact that the shipping company's insurance has already paid to put some money into that bridge, but it should not. But Governor Wes Moore asked Joe Biden for full government funding for the remaking of the bridge. In addition, Governor Wes Moore is trying to change the name of the bridge. Thanks to Delegate Bob Long and others in the Maryland Assembly, the name of the bridge will stay because that is history. Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem on that bridge. It's a very significant bridge with very significant history. Again, these Democrats, these liberals are trying to take history away from us. And that's what kills our young people when they go to school. If we change the name of the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge, how are young kids going to elementary school going to even know about Francis Scott Key and the War of 1812? Most kids nowadays don't even know the year of the Declaration of Independence. It's a real problem. And things have got to change. And then we'll revert to another topic. It turns out that USA Aid, and we'll put up that slide. Yep, USA Aid funded the impeachment of Donald Trump, funded that SOB Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, funded that SOB Alexander Vindman. And Alexander Vindman is Jewish. He's got a Jewish twin brother. Hashtag not my Jew. Hashtag never a Jew. Hashtag not a real Jew. Funded that SOB Eric Chiramella, the whistleblower, and funded Joe Biden with $1 billion so that the SOB could pay off his blackmail, bribery, extortion, and money laundering activities. Yeah, and you have these crazy Democrats that are saying, oh, we have to keep USAID. We have to keep USAID. What Doge is doing is awful. Speaking of Doge, what did Doge discover? Remember Planned Parenthood? We'll pull up that slide. There you go. Doge News, that's Elon Musk. Reminder, Planned Parenthood still receives nearly $2 million every day from U.S. taxpayers. In addition to abortions, they fund anti-Trump PACs and politicians. And elected official Tim Fazanbaker and I, we know about politicians that actually vote for state-funded abortions, and they claim that they're all pro-life, they're pro-life, but no. And one elected official said, well, you know, they're only funding 1 or 2 abortions. Well, guess what? 1 or 2 abortions is more than enough. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And we're seeing what Doge is discovering. As we know, Doge has discovered that people that are 200 years old, a person that's 300 years old is collecting social security. Oh, we're not done with the segment yet. Almost 5 minutes. But it's very interesting that is happening. That should not be happening. There's nobody that's alive that's, you know, 200 years old. It's crazy. It's very crazy. And, you know, that is why Doge is so important. And these Democrats that are combating Doge, that are combating President Trump and his policies, that are combating ICE, that are combating DHS, guess what? It's not going to bode well for them. They're going to be removed from office. Some of them are going to go to jail. And I can tell you, I have personally emailed Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, Pete Hegseth, ICE, Thomas Homan, and even the Secretary of HUD, to tell them about these liberal Democrats that are trying to push Section 8 housing on federal property, federal land, and that they are harvesting illegals. I have a residency in Montgomery County, Maryland. There are so many illegal refugees, illegal Afghan, illegal Syrian, illegal Lebanon refugees that currently still live in Montgomery County that need to be removed. And any politician that supports this, they should go to jail. Not just removed from office, but go to jail. And it's so important. It's so important that we have elected officials that follow the law. Speaking of an elected official, we have a returning elected official coming up at the bottom of the hour, elected official Tim Fazanbaker. He is elected official in Dundalk, Edgemere, and Essex, and he will be with us right after the break.
Do you have old home videotapes that you're no longer able to watch? Need them transferred to DVD, Blu-ray, or your smart device? Baltimore Digital offers professional-grade VHS, mini DV, and high 8 digitizing services. We can also convert Super 8mm film too. Baltimore Digital also provides photo restoration services. Visit archive.baltimoredigital.net. Mention code Alexandra for a 10% introductory discount.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. This is Alexandra Levine with Alexandra Levine Live. Special report again at the bottom of this hour. We're going to put up the slide. Thank you guys so much for the episode 128. There you go. Episode 128 with Robin Zirkle, who is the grandma of Kason Longo. As you know, Kason Longo is the 12-year-old boy that was brutally attacked by a gang of about 10 to, I would say, 20 boys in front of an apartment complex. I can tell you that, again, an attorney is involved. Police got involved. Unfortunately, the police considered it not a hate crime, which has shocked the whole entire community, as well as Baltimore County and the whole state of Maryland. But I want to thank everybody for watching the video. This actually was put on Vimeo. It is just the interview with myself, Robin, and elected official Tim Fazanbaker. And it has gotten retweeted, reposted. So many people have reached out to myself and Tim Fazanbaker and the family to see what they can do. I can tell you that the boy, his birthday's this weekend. So if you guys can reach out to Robin Zirkle and just say happy birthday, Kason, that would really help. I can tell you that the boy, he did go back to school, but he's still traumatized from the event. And there are some days where he may want to be homeschooled. There's some days where he may want to go to school, but we need to let the boy know that he is in our hearts and in our prayers, and we want everything to go well for the family and for him. I can tell you, I can report to you live that I did contact the White House administration, Caroline Leavitt, as well as the people in charge, the people above, about this story, about the situation. I asked that President Trump please call the grandma, please call the family, because I know that the family would really love that. I know that Casey would really love that, especially for his birthday. So we'll keep you abreast on that. I told Robin, if the president does call you or anyone for the administration call you, please let us know. We would love to hear that call, or just, let us know. Or if we can hear it in real time, that'd be great. Or just record the voicemail if it goes to voicemail. But, it's so horrific what happened to that young man, to the point where we still have a graphic that says a small child was jumped. This was actually the video that recirculated of the boy. You can still see it on X. You can see it on Robin Zirkel's Facebook. And it was retweeted, reshared thousands and thousands of times. Lives of TikTok, which is a huge X group. They have millions and millions of followers. They retweeted it. And at the very bottom, if you can see, Elon Musk, he also stated WTF, what the F, exclamation, and he retweeted it as well. We've also had Cat Turd retweeted. He's got millions of followers. We have Gunther Eagleman. He's got millions of followers. Chuck Callisto, millions of followers. We have some big names that have picked up this story, that have retweeted the video. They think it's horrific. Everybody thinks it's disgusting, that the police didn't consider it a hate crime. But again, the focus is that the boy is alive. Thank God nothing happened to Kaysen. But we also just want to continue to show our support to the family. I can tell you that the family is looking into transferring schools, possibly putting Kaysen Longo into a private school. Mr. Fazanbaker has had people come out to him and said, oh my God, Tim, where can we send money to send this kid to a private school? And with that being said, we're going to bring up elected official Tim Fazanbaker to give us more of an update of the family, of what's going on. And we'll have him right up. Damon, bring him up. And Tim is not here yet. He must be in the green room. And we will get him in just 2 seconds. And we're just gonna message. But I can tell you that, as we know from last week, that Tim reached out to the family immediately when this happened. He posted on his Twitter about this. And he also contacted the attorney for the family immediately. He knew the attorney very well. The attorney is actually helping the family for free. I also know that Tim also contacted the police immediately to get them involved. And also, Tim, as he said last week, he involved the superintendent, some school board members, to get them aware, to make sure that the kid is safe. To make sure that he is safe when he goes back to school. So when he goes back to school, there was parents around him, parents or other parents, bigger guys, big dads, around him, to make sure that he is safe, and to make sure that he is totally safe. And we thank Mr. Fazanbaker for that. We're just waiting for him to come on. I think I started a few minutes early. My bad. I think I told him 8:30, so it's 8:24, but it's okay. But, as I said, this was a beautiful, it was a tragic story, but it turned out, beautiful because the community came out for Kaysen. I've never met Kaysen before, but I love the boy. I'm treating him like if he was my own son. And it's unbelievable, unbelievable what happened to him. And again, our thoughts go to his family. Our thoughts go to the family and to everything. I am turning it a little bit. I am getting updates of the release of the JFK files. President Trump thinks that they were paid attackers that killed JFK. So that is breaking news. Again, everyone thought, oh, it was just Lee Harvey Oswald. there was more to it. So President Trump just tweeted out that there was paid attackers that paid paid attackers that were paid to kill JFK on that fateful day in 1963 in Texas. And again, we're just waiting for elected official. He's in the green room. Damon is going to bring him up so he can talk more. There we are. Hey, I think I started a few minutes early. I'm sorry about that.
It's been an eventful hour or so trying to go through these JFK files. I heard you
Please,
talking a little bit.
That's the breaking story of it, please.
I heard you talking a little bit about it. A couple of the things that I just glanced through as I'm going through thousands and thousands of pages. Warren Commission basically said what the media line is, that it was Oswald. There were dissenters. There was later on at the congressional hearings thing. There was commissions. There were at least 4 or 5 members of Congress that completely dissented with the information. I just read on page 492 that there was the experts were saying there was a 95% chance that there was definitely 2 shooters, and who knows right now? It's going to take a while to dig through all this. But what was it that you saw President Trump just put out?
Yeah, so President Trump tweeted out that it was paid attackers. So he used plural. And honestly, my father saw it, live. My mother did too. It changed history to see that. And my father was the one that didn't think it was just one guy. My father always said there was probably more than one. And my father was the one that, thinks that LBJ was behind this. He always has.
Obviously, I wasn't alive at the time, but I've been into that story forever, and my personal belief was that LBJ was involved, and it'll be very fascinating to go through this and find out what we can see. And hopefully a lot of doesn't seem like anything's redacted, but it does seem like there's a lot of fluff in there at the moment, where these reports that go through Congress is a lot of just towing the line. So it's going to take a bit, but I'm glad to hear that, Trump had put out that message right now to help guide us in what we're looking for. It's very interesting, and I think it correlates, or it's akin to today's environment, where you have, President Trump, when he was running for office, at least 2 assassination attempts. Who knows what's going on right now behind the scenes as well. These things do happen, and no matter what, American people, if they have distrust in any of their elected officials and what happens, it's the government's responsibility for that perception. They need to make sure that we feel like we have all the information, that we can make up our own minds. If we have the information, we may disagree with what we're reading, but if we have it and we feel that we weren't lied to, we can move forward as a society and have more faith in our government and our institutions.
I agree with you. Let me ask you a question. Jackie Kennedy, her outfit that she wore when her husband was murdered is still in the archives. It's sealed up. Nobody has ever done a forensic analysis of her dress. They've never scooped up the blood that was on there. I mean, there's a lot of DNA on that dress, or excuse me, that whole outfit, the skirt with the jacket, that no one has ever dived into. Do you think now, with the JFK files out, now they're going to go in and maybe dissect her dress a little bit?
I think Hillary Clinton found out the hard way about those dresses, and she made sure that her involvement, because JFK knew that he had evidence on her to have her arrested in 1963. This is all a joke. Anyway, that's one of the funny things I've heard today, that JFK put out a letter that he had information to lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. Yeah. So, but to answer your question, I do believe that will probably be pushed or requested from many people as well. It's unfortunate for that family and for all the Americans, that saw this, that live with that memory. But it's something that I think needs to be explored to help put our minds at ease. And if I'm elected in a different position, or I'm a bureaucrat or whatever, I want the public to know as much as possible, so that they can still build that trust, and I can help work with them so that we can move forward instead of having that backlash where the public doesn't believe the government. So let's see if that happens. It'll be days as many reporters like ourselves are going through this stuff. But it's amazing that we're even in this discussion now because thankfully President Trump had kept his promise and revealed everything. And I haven't seen one redacted thing so far, which is great.
Yeah, President Trump said that it was going to be all unredacted. He did put that out yesterday before he announced that he was going to release that. That's what he said at the Kennedy Center yesterday. Yeah. So isn't that funny? He was at the Kennedy Center, and then we have the John F. Kennedy files released. I find that very interesting. I just thought about that in my brain. Very, very interesting.
There are some, obviously there's a lot of things about James R. Ray and MLK in here, and I haven't been able to get through that as well, but that's always been interesting to me because as a child growing up, I've always heard the stories about that James R. Ray was probably being utilized by, let's say, a government entity to do their dirty work and was rewarded by being set free for a certain amount of time with money, passports, and then was brought back and was taking the blame for this. So I'm very interested in that. I'm also very interested to see if the leak that came out a few years ago about MLK being involved in rapes with a pastor actually from Maryland in hotels that was secretly recorded by the FBI. But so FBI was probably wrong, but if the stories are true with MLK, that's wrong too, and that's going to change society and how we look at someone like MLK. So I don't know if it's in here, but it's something that I'm very much looking forward to see what is in there as well.
Yeah, and also the RFK files came out, so that's something, of course, that's near and dear to RFK Jr.'s heart because he's seeing what happened to his father. Yeah. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why he became the HHS secretary, is he wanted those files released. And then we're also going to see the files of President Trump and his, assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, July of 2024, because we still don't really know much about the shooter. We still don't know the motive. I mean, there's so many gaps to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania that day. What say you about that?
Yeah, I think it was Thomas Michael Crooks, and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name, but one of them had 6 phones, which President Trump mentioned. There was some apps on there that were mysterious, probably foreign apps. And, it wouldn't surprise many of us if we found out that these were paid actors, in a sense, not actors as in Hollywood, but paid people that were doing dirty work, who maybe they were tied in with BlackRock, or maybe they were part of MK Ultra type stuff, where these people are being utilized in a negative way by people with power to achieve negative or mischievous desires. I'm very much looking forward to it, mainly with Thomas Michael Crooks, I believe that's what his name is, in Butler, PA, because it just seemed very odd to me that you have this young kid who had been in a BlackRock commercial that was on a roof. People were telling the police officers there's somebody walking around with a gun, walking up there. The police had caught him before, walking through security with gun paraphernalia, and yet he's still up there and he gets off shots. And then we hear the bogus stories from the CIA director or Secret Service director, and that there was a sloped roof and we couldn't do anything about it. All that was fake. And, it was either extremely incompetent or it was very mischievous, to say the least. So I'm very much looking forward to that, as well as most of America.
Now, what say you about the Epstein files? They haven't fully been released. They said that the ones that were going to be released wasn't the full list. People are a little PO'd at Attorney General Pam Bondi, but I know that she's working with Kash Patel to get those out there. She actually wrote a letter to Kash Patel before he became the FBI director, telling him that there is going to be pushback for him to get these files. And then Alina Habba, who is a personal friend of mine, and she works with, she's very good friends with my Jexit spokesperson, Siggy Flicker. She revealed on Benny Johnson's podcast that the Epstein files will be released. And the list is going to just mind boggle so many people. What say you about that?
The Epstein files need to be released. And when that whole fiasco came out a couple weeks ago with the Epstein files, it made a lot of us believers in freedom and in transparency become deflated. We felt as if, well, here we go again. We're told we're going to find evidence and there's going to be transparency, and it doesn't happen. This time, I think it's a little different. And I ask people, if you want to hold, say, President Trump or Attorney General Bondi accountable, give them a little bit of time. And I only say it this time because he's brought in the people. President Trump has brought in the people in these positions this time that are loyal to our movement. And these people want what we want. Now, there's been some things I haven't loved about Pam Bondi in her past, but some 2A type issues. But I do believe the number one person that will get this out is President Trump. So if Pam Bondi won't get it out, President Trump will make sure it gets out. If that means he has to put in another AG, that's what he'll do. That list of, well, here's the general conspiracy. I'll just say it like this. That list of the Epstein files probably involves many of the players in our government and in our social media and in our media with Hollywood. And these players have been hiding things for a long time. That's how they accumulate power. Many of us believe that they get trapped and they get blackmailed because of these things that they do. CIA can use that against them. And all of a sudden you have this cycle of power. And I do know this for a fact, because when I ran for Congress and I met with Newt Gingrich's team, I asked this similar type of question back then. I said, how is it that so many people that I really admire that are going into Congress or Senate, they have great records, I believe them, and then all of a sudden they just change? And they had mentioned, his team mentioned to me that this happens a lot. A lot of guys will become, Congress people or in the Senate, and the first thing they do is they find your weakness. Is it women? Is it drugs? Is it something? Once they get that blackmail on you, they hold it over you forever, and they can persuade your votes. They can persuade your actions. So I think the Epstein file will uncover a lot of people, and I'm sure there'll be people on there that weren't involved with the most nefarious of activities. Maybe Stephen Hawkins, because he couldn't do anything, and apparently his name's on the list. But there definitely are people in there that are key players in a lot of the moving and shaking that goes on, and it definitely needs to be uncovered. And I do believe President Trump will get this out.
Well, what if, Bill Clinton's name is on the list, which we all know he is. And let's say current elected officials like in the Senate and in the House of Representatives are on that list. You're an elected official. What do you think the consequences should be for them?
Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. We do have our assumptions. And I'll use President Clinton as an example. Most people who know that President Clinton was going there, they probably believe that he was going there doing, let's say, evil things.
Nefarious things.
Yeah, we'll say nefarious. They don't have the proof necessarily, but they see the connection. And that's important because when there's that connection, there should be explanations instead of just holding somebody completely accountable for it. So he will have to answer for why he was there, what he was doing. But he deserves the right to be innocent until proven guilty. But many people will believe that he is guilty. And you know what? If he comes up guilty, most of us won't be surprised and shocked, as well as many of the other people that were there. But like I said, I'm sure people that were there weren't doing those nefarious things, but a bunch of them probably were. And it's the American people deserve to know who is elected to represent us and lead us if they are involved in these types of things. And if they are, they need to be held accountable and responsible.
Do you think the people that saw something and didn't say anything should be held accountable, in your opinion?
Yeah. Oh, of course. As a father, first and foremost, most people that are parents or even not parents, but most people, decent, regular, everyday people, will step in if they see something going on that's wrong. And if they saw trafficking going on, maybe physically they don't step in and do something, but they should be telling somebody. I bet there are stories that maybe one day will come out where, Jane Doe sees something, she ends up telling some kind of authority, and the authorities kind of just push it aside for other reasons, like well, it's not our jurisdiction, or it's just your word. But there were people, I'm sure, that did step up and say something. And as we know, President Trump has been on the record talking about Jeffrey Epstein, saying that he was making I think a 14-year-old girl uncomfortable. A friend of President Trump's, it was a daughter of his friend, and he kicked out Jeffrey Epstein. So there are people that just are innately good that will do these things to protect. Um, but I'm sure there were people there that were thinking it was the greatest thing in the world, that they had unfiltered access to do whatever they wanted with no inhibitions, and they need to be held accountable and they need to be taken off the streets.
And I do want to say this for the record, and we'll go into a different subject, that Epstein and President Trump were not buddy-buddy. They were not best friends. And like you said, Tim, when President Trump found out that Jeffrey Epstein was doing nefarious things with girls at Mar-a-Lago, he banned him from Mar-a-Lago for life, as well as all Trump properties. Because right. President Trump, I can tell you, he will never support that. He will never stand by that. And as you see, he's trying to get rid of all of the sex trafficking, child trafficking, human trafficking that's happened all over this country. So we talked a little bit about, did you want to?
Yeah, one last thing. Mm-hmm. When you have the far left that claims, oh, Trump was involved and Trump was on Epstein Island, whatever they say, just know this. If Trump's name were on any of those, this would have been a story all over the news.
Oh, before. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that Trump wasn't involved in any of these nefarious type of activities, because the Democrats and the left would have definitely had this everywhere around the media.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Turning to, I talked about in my monologue about your lovely state of Maryland, your wonderful governor and your attorney general, and that wonderful, wonderful Baltimore City mayor, Brandon Scott, who we love so much. So as you know, President Trump said that he wants the FBI headquarters moved to DC instead of it being in Maryland. But of course, your governor, Wes Moore, has fought hard and fought back against President Trump moving the FBI headquarters to DC. What say you about that?
So, as a person who's involved in our community and in Maryland, I would love to have more opportunities and more business, federal jobs, personal, private jobs sector here in Maryland. But I do not fault President Trump or most of the FBI that do not want to be in Greenbelt, Maryland, which is a suburb basically of DC. It's not the people necessarily in Greenbelt, although it's not necessarily the safest area, but it's the entire environment where you're going to have many of the FBI agents that would have to live in Maryland, because it'll be much easier to commute than going through the DC 495 corridor. So now you're forcing a lot of the people to basically take residence in Maryland. And if you have your choice, you want to pay what's probably going to be 8.5% sales tax in Maryland versus whatever it is in Virginia, where you have tons of regulations in Maryland, where you have basically a one-party rule in this state, and you have terrible representation, versus Virginia, which isn't the best state in the world either. But their motto right now in their gubernatorial campaign is "Don't Maryland my Virginia," and that's true, because Maryland is way behind Virginia in many things, with job growth, with satisfaction, with the cost of living. And I wouldn't want to be having to reside in the Maryland Greenbelt area if I had my choice between that and somewhere in DC. Plus the logistical information that President Trump talked about. He would like the DOJ and FBI to be connected somewhat closer, because they do work hand in hand. Now, also with Maryland, we have Governor Wes Spend Moore, who is not up to par when it comes to these types of things in encouraging business or federal employment to come to Maryland. And you have this boondoggle of a budget where we're billions of dollars in deficit this year. And why would you reward, in a sense, a government like what's going on in Maryland with a massive institution like the FBI? And one example that we do have is we have the Social Security Administration in the western side of Baltimore County in the Woodlawn area. And, it's not the greatest area in the world either. but it brings in a lot of jobs. It brings in a lot of money. And you know what? Maryland is just sucks on the teat of the government so much that it will fall when you don't have that reliance on these federal jobs and federal money. So I hate to see it in my own state, but if we kick Maryland off of the government teat, then all of a sudden you have a state that is forced now to find other ways and solutions to actually make this state thrive and not just suck off of the rest of the states across the country and their taxes.
Well, let me ask you, as you know, Westmore is up for reelection. Attorney General Brown is up for reelection. But they keep combating President Trump and his executive orders. They keep combating ICE. They keep combating DHS. They're putting Section 8 in Fort Howard. And I talked to somebody today who works for the Trump administration, and he thinks it's disgusting that they want to put Section 8 in federal land. But again, these Democrats keep getting reelected over and over and over again. Is there anything that we can do, obviously on the federal level, to make it so that Westmore is charged, the Attorney General is charged, Pam Bondi sues the state? I know I've been working hard on it. You've been working hard on it. What more solutions can we do so that this man doesn't get reelected? This man is charged, and Attorney General doesn't get reelected. He's also charged. So we can have a better Maryland. So we can have a Maryland that follows the law, because it's really sad when you have your governor and your attorney general and the Baltimore city mayor going up against the Trump administration, when I know for a fact a lot of Marylanders voted more for President Trump in this election than they did in 2020 and in 2016. I talked to a lot of independents and Democrats that did not vote for Larry Hogan for U.S. Senate, but they voted for President Trump. What say you?
I think that's a perfect analogy of kind of what's been going on with this state and their political background. If I'm correct, I think 20% of the state is Republican, 20% of the state is independent, 40% is Democrat, and whatever else. And what has happened in this state that used to be 1984, we voted for President Reagan, the last time we voted for a Republican president. But this state has depended so much on federal government and has been destroyed by liberalism in this state that you have a lot of failed liberal actors that couldn't make it as a Democrat. So they became what we would call rhinos, and they become Republicans, and they water down the message. And you don't have you have pale pastels instead of bold colors, as Reagan would say, of what the difference is between a Republican and a Democrat in this state. That's kind of where Larry Hogan fell into. He knew that he was smart enough to play the game to say, you know what, I can act as if I'm middle. I can use the conservative base, but in order to win, I do need mainly the Democrats to carry me across the line, and he did. So he was smart for that, but it wasn't the best thing for Maryland, although it was a lot better than what we're seeing now with Governor Moore. So I think what will happen, and I've said, I continue to fight. I live in a conservative area. I continue to fight for my area, my state, my city, and everything. But I think this will take generations before this state fully collapses under the liberalism mindset before it can actually grow again. And then we look at something like California, where you're starting to really see it, or even New York, where you're seeing the mass exodus of people. And then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more balanced because there are a lot of liberals that even left those states because they didn't like the policies they even put in place. But I think what surprised me the most is with what President Trump's been doing, that Maryland is now going to be facing a housing crisis because people are leaving. It's not going to be what we're told, where we have not enough houses. We're going to have way too many because the market especially in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, which are the suburbs of DC, people are going to be fleeing because they're losing their jobs. They're leaving. They're going back home to whatever state they came from. And now there's not as much relying on federal money that's coming into this state.
But we have Section 8 housing coming in.
Yeah. So that's kind of what is the tipping point, where you have so many programs that the left has funneled into their base. Well, now you're not going to have a base that's going to pay for it. And you look at a city like Baltimore, where, for the past 40 some years, Baltimore has has dwindled in population from over 1 million to, I don't know, 500,000 right now. And they keep losing money, and they don't have a tax base. They have so many people that take, but they don't have many people that give. So now they're doing gentrification, where they're pushing a lot of those people out to the counties to try to get people from the counties to move back to the city, so that there can be a base again, and that people will want to even visit Baltimore. Baltimore is beautiful, but there are a lot of issues with it that have destroyed this great city and state over the years. And I think this is a massive turning point with President Trump doing what he's doing to hurt a state like Maryland, which in the long run will be beneficial compared to what they're doing now, which is hurting us by draining us, forcing us to leave this state, and not giving us real representation.
Well, let me ask you something, because there are rumors spreading that Governor Larry Hogan wants to run for governor again. And then there's also rumors, and we saw this in Mr. Parrott's FEC Exploratory Committee report, that he's running for his 4th time for CD6, which, as you know, should be a Republican congressional district, but it's always Frederick County and Montgomery County, which kind of hurts any Republican. But I think, in my opinion, it depends on the Republican that runs for that seat.
Yeah.
What say you about that?
So Neil Parrott, I believe, has ran 3 times for Congress in Western Maryland. This used to be handled by Roscoe Bartlett for a long time. Then it became gerrymandered, and it went Democrat ever since. The district was modified again, was more competitive, I believe, within 4 or 5 points, probably. It's still, I don't think, was perfect. They still added the urban areas and the areas by DC out with Western Maryland, which has nothing in common. Western Maryland is basically West Virginia. It's very mountainous, different way of life. Those people don't want anything to do with DC. But you have...
And for our audience, that's Garrett County, Allegheny, and Washington counties.
Correct. And then that area has not been captured by a Republican candidate for different reasons. Neil Parrott is completely different than someone like Larry Hogan, but it's a challenge, and I think you have to have the right person there that can have crossover appeal without giving up their platform and their principles. And Neil's a great guy. I've known Neil for years, and he's worked with me on police programs that we've pushed. But I think you need a new face to push a new message, and that message is more of a populist message, like President Trump has said. So a lot of Democrats will vote for someone like Trump, in certain areas. Maybe not Baltimore City or Prince George's County, but because they're going to be more in line with a far left agenda. But there are breaks in that as well. So, if Larry Hogan runs for governor, it'd be very interesting, because many of the Republicans and the conservatives in this state don't want him in control of this party, because he destroyed this party in this state. He allowed this party to continue to lose seats in the House and Congress and everything else. But at the same time, he is better than what we have with what most people will say, a very incompetent leader with Governor Wes Moore, who has many issues, of course, with stolen valor as one of the beliefs that many people have with him, or whether he actually wrote his own book and whether he's actually from Maryland. So it would be very interesting to see if Governor Hogan ran again. It'd be interesting to see who would vote for him. I still think he would lose against Governor Wes Moore because of the state's mindset. And then in Western Maryland, it'd be interesting to see if Neil Parrott runs for a 4th time. And we would probably continue to lose. I would hope that we wouldn't, but I think it's time that we have a fresh face, somebody who's more in line with the populist movement and not just a staunch conservative type movement. Even though I'm very conservative libertarian myself, it needs to be messaged in a certain way to have people that are more middle of the road and Democrat leaning to join our side.
I also know that President Trump wants to implement photo ID for every single state and have election on the day with paper ballots. I was talking to Fox 45, Fox DC reporters. They said if Maryland implemented that, maybe that would help a Neil Parrott get in or a Republican get in, and maybe that would help get a Republican in the governorship. What say you about that?
100%. I thought that you would see states that were never, ever even up for grabs, they would end up becoming battleground states or right-leaning simply by just following the law and having voter ID and same day voting and things like that. Maryland, I would say that you would have more pockets that would end up being right-leaning. I don't know if it would turn red initially. I think there's a lot more uh, corruption and other issues going on that need to be pushed out before it would happen, but it would be definitely in play. I would say that in all of the states in this past election, Maryland, at least in Baltimore County, we didn't really actually improve very much to support President Trump. We still have a lot of infrastructure in this state that dampers us from getting someone like President Trump more support and vote in this state. So, you could also say in one breath, well, maybe President Trump's being vindictive and not giving the FBI headquarters to Maryland because we don't support his platform. You know what? That's his prerogative, and he has every right to do that. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's his choice. But I do believe that it's not necessary to have it in Maryland when you have other options, and you'll have employees happier when it's somewhere else. So I welcome those types of things to come to Maryland so that we have voter ID and we have a more balanced state. Because look, one party states usually aren't the greatest. And as a conservative libertarian person like myself, of course, I want people who believe like me to be in power. But as my behavioral health profession in my past will say, well, when you have many people who are very on the right, you end up sometimes losing the empathy of what it means to be someone who's struggling. But when you have it the opposite way and you have all people on the left, they don't have any logic in terms of, well, how do we actually take care of those people? All they want to do is just take money and give it to the other people for votes and power. So I think having a good balance, although right-leaning, would be the best for most states. That's ultimately where I could see Maryland being, not in 50 years now, but maybe in the next 10, maybe in the next 15, maybe in the next 5. But whatever it is, I'm willing to fight with President Trump to make sure we help get Maryland in that direction.
Well, Tom, we just have a couple minutes left. I wanted you to give my audience just a little update on what's going on with Queso Longo and his family, if there's any new information that you've obtained from the family.
So I spoke with the law firm that we helped get on board with them for his case and pro bono and all that. They had to keep everything quiet because there are things going on. However, one of our followers and supporters ended up messaging me maybe about an hour ago to let me know that Scott Schellenberger, who was the state's attorney for Baltimore County handling this case, has responded to people and said he will attend a police community meeting that will happen in the area probably next week or so. So I'm waiting to find out that day when it's going to be, and I plan to attend. And I believe many people are going to show up because now
I'll be there.
Of course you will. And this at this time now people understand the process. Like, okay, people see, okay, well, these people do something bad, they get arrested. They don't really know what happens at that point. But now it's the state's attorney. He has to decide, am I going to continue pushing these charges? Am I going to let them go? And we put the pressure on him now to say, it's on you, and this is what we want. Now, mob rule is not the best, but at this point, he needs to know how many of us feel. So he'll be at that meeting, and he'll hear what we're thinking, and hopefully he's in line with the community and say, we're going to do something. He's fighting an uphill battle as well because his own party, he's a Democrat, his own party has put in legislation that people under a certain age can murder somebody technically and not face any real penalty. And that's sad to say that, if a 12-year-old does something like that, or a 13-year-old, I'm not completely sure what the law is there, but that those people can just walk away. No, I mean, gang leaders and drug dealers are going to end up using young kids now to say, hey, look, just go do this. I'll pay you. I'll take care of you. You don't have to worry about going to jail because the law says you're completely fine. So next week, hopefully, once I know more details, I'll be there. I'll let you know what the plan is legally. And if we need to continue putting pressure on the state's attorney and other people, we'll continue to do that.
I'm glad that you said that. And I just want to say it is Kason Longo's birthday this weekend. Please, everybody, reach out to the family. Say happy birthday. You know, he feels like he has no friends, but we here at the America's Pulse Network, we are his friends. He's got many, many friends, and more friends than he actually knows, especially friends on X and friends on Facebook that have retweeted his post and have really just reached out to you and reached out to me about wanting to help. And I feel for that boy so much. And I know what it's like to be bullied. I was bullied in school for being Jewish. I didn't have a lot of friends from age 6 all the way to age 13 because I'm Jewish. And I grew up in an area where there was no Jews at the time in Sarasota County. So I feel for him. I feel what he's going through. So please, if anybody can just message the family, say happy birthday, Kason. And as I said earlier, Tim, I did reach out to the Trump administration, to Caroline Leavitt, and I gave President Trump Robin Zirkel's phone number. I hope that he calls her and wishes Kason a happy birthday, because I think he would really love that and appreciate that. But I can say to my audience that the Trump administration is involved with this. As we know, Elon Musk is involved in this. He got involved in it. And we just have to keep pushing this story out, because we don't want this to happen to anyone else. Like you said, Tim, you have 4 children who are around the same age as Kason. If God forbid that happened to your kids, oh my God, you know, you have wonderful kids. So we have to, you know, we really have to make people aware that, you know, we just have to make people aware of this. And as you know, a lot of people in your community were very upset that the police did not charge any of these kids with a hate crime. What say you about that?
I talked to someone, someone in the high up in the Maryland ranks, who did remind me. He said, you know, you can just put it out there. You don't even have to say what, you know, your opinion is on it. But many people who have eyes will watch that video and make their own determination. And ultimately, you know, I'm one person, you're one person, but together, all of us as a community and everything, the more we push and hold people accountable and say, hey, we think this is this, and you better explain why it's not, then the people in power in this state have to answer for that. And that is where everybody who thinks, you know, what can I do to make a difference? Your one voice is 1 in a million. And as we continue to grow together and collectively say what we want and what we believe, then we put the pressure on those people to actually have action and change things in this state.
Well, Tim, this has been a great 40 minutes. Tell my followers how we can follow you.
You can find me on Facebook. I'm actually on a little ban right now because of sharing the Kason videos, but it was worth it to get out that message. You can find me at Tim Fazanbaker on Facebook. You can find me America One Tim Faze on X, and just Google my name and everything else will pop up. Actually, what Elon said is don't Google it, Grok it, which is his new AI form. Instead of Googling, go to Grok, put it in there, but just put my name in there. Grok said some nice things about me, so I'll go along with that.
And before you go, Damon, we're going to pull up the flyer to our friend Kimberly Stansberry. There we go. Kimberly Stansberry, she's running for Baltimore County Executive. Join us for the Public Safety Over Politics campaign kickoff. It's going to be this Friday, March 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Bowman's, which is a great restaurant, 9306 Harford Road. Please click on that QR code and get your tickets. Purchase or donate at electkimstansberry.org. That's going to be a phenomenal event. We're actually having a gubernatorial candidate there, John Myrick. He's going to be speaking. So again, if you've never heard of Kim Stansberry, if you want to know who's running for Baltimore County Executive, if you want to know who's running for governor on the Republican side, come to her event, get to know her, get to know John Myrick, get to know me, get to know all of us. It's going to be there, and it's going to be a really fun event. Again, that's March 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Bowman's.
I'll be there too.
Yep, Tim will be there too. If you want to get to know Tim, if you want to meet him in person and talk to him, he'll be there. His door is always open. As you know, he's very, very easygoing, and you can talk to any of us. But guys, it's very important that you come this Friday, show your support. But again, if you don't know Kimberly Stansberry, this is the time to know. I have so many people that reach out and they're like, I don't know this person running for school board. I don't know that person. I don't know this person. Well, we're giving you the opportunity with this event or any event to get to know the people that are running. So you can't complain and say, I don't know this person, never met that person, blah, blah, blah. Go to this event, meet Kim Stansberry, meet John Myrick, meet Tim, meet myself, and, you know, just get to know us. Get to know who are the people that are running in your county and in your state. And thank you guys so much. We will be right back after the break.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Levine. I'm a professional opera singer, actress, TV, and radio personality. Since 2015, I've been a volunteer, a field director, and a campaign manager, learning the ins and outs of the political world. That's why I became a political consultant. My job is to lead you to victory with organization, structure, and the mindset of winning for your district or state. With my guidance and direction, I can keep you focused on the things that matter to the people and advise you on key issues that need to be addressed. If you're a serious candidate that is serious about winning, then book a consultation with me today. Go to levineconsulting.co. You'll be happy you did.
And we are all in with Alexandra Levine Live. I'm Alexandra Levine with the America's Pulse Network. We just had a wonderful guest, again, elected official Tim Fazanbaker in Baltimore County. He has become a recurring guest here on America's Pulse Network. You're going to be seeing a lot more of him in the coming weeks and in the coming months. And you can go to timfazanbaker.com. You can also follow him at X at America1 Tim Faz. You can follow him on Instagram at Tim Faz and on Facebook, of course, at Tim Fazanbaker. Well, we're actually going into another topic. As you know, I cover national and international issues. With the first slide, today, the fugitive leader of ISIS in Iraq was killed. He was relentlessly hunted down by our intrepid warfighters. His miserable life was terminated along with another member of ISIS in coordination with the Iraqi government and the Kurdish regional government. Peace through strength. And I also want to tell our viewers that we have ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria currently. The Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, has actually been going into Syria and knocking out ISIS. As you know, there's been tons and tons of videos by Syrian Christians that are getting killed by ISIS. They're getting killed by Al-Qaeda. And of course, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see innocent lives murdered. We don't want another October 7th. So the Israeli Defense Force has taken initiative to go into Syria and to demolish ISIS and get rid of ISIS. As you know, in Israel, Hamas, they broke the ceasefire. They were supposed to release more of the hostages, which of course they failed to do. And Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump knew they weren't going to own up to their end of the bargain. A lot of people thought that Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu was being soft and that he shouldn't be releasing prisoners and that he should just go in there and annihilate Hamas once and for all. Well, remember, that was the original mission, to annihilate the enemy once and for all and bring all of the hostages back. And what has the IDF done? They have gone into Gaza and they have destroyed as many Hamas leaders, Hamas militants as possible. Danny Dimon, who is the UN ambassador to Israel, he has said, we are going in there. There is no mercy. We are going to kill those men and we are going to bring all of our hostages back. That is a victory. And of course, at the White House today, there was a huge protest. It was a pro-Hamas protest. They were saying pure propaganda, pure hate against Israel, against President Trump. They were calling Israel an apartheid state, a racist state, a terror state, a reform state. I mean, they don't even know what they're saying. It got to the point where the girl was screaming so loud that she obtained laryngitis. Well, I guess, you know, that was what she was supposed to do for her $60 an hour that she gets paid by George Soros. All of these groups, Jewish Voices for Peace, all these pro-Hamas groups are formed and funded by George Soros, the anti-Jew Jew. So anytime you see those morons, you just have to laugh it off. You have to laugh it off and know that they're spewing out pure propaganda. And again, we have to stand and support our biggest ally, Israel. It's the right thing to do. That we do have a lot of Christians that live in Israel. We have 2 million Arab Israelis that live in Israel. And again, what happened on October 7th should never happen to any country. It should never happen to Israel again. As they say, never again means never again, and never again means now. And we're going to pull up the next slide. As we know, we are dealing with the Houthis in Yemen. This is what President Truth. To all Houthi terrorists, your time is up and your attacks must stop, starting today. If they don't, hell will rain down upon you like nothing you have ever seen before. To Iran, support for the Houthi terrorists must and immediately do not threaten the American people, their president, who has received one of the largest mandates in presidential history, or worldwide shipping lanes. If you do, beware, because America will hold you fully accountable and we won't be nice about it. As you know, the Houthis came in. They actually bombed the Harry Truman ship. And then they lied. They said, oh, we weren't near it at all. Oh, we didn't touch it. They bombed it and bombed it and bombed it and bombed it and bombed it. And then the last time they bombed it, they didn't touch it. But they're lying and saying that they never touched it. So what is President Trump doing with his military now with Pete Hegseth? He's going in there and he's demolishing the Houthis. He's going into Yemen because you do not attack our man-made ships. You do not attack our troops for no reason and don't expect retaliation. Remember, under President Trump in 2017, he threw down the Moab, the mother of all bombs. You don't think President Trump's going to do that again? The Houthis hate Israel. The Houthis hate the Israelis. They've been fighting against them since October 7th. After October 7th, you had all these different terrorist organizations that just surrounded themselves around Israel. And then we had Biden and Kamala Harris in power, and they loved it. They did nothing to help our biggest ally, Israel. Again, you're seeing the tides are turned, new leadership. You're seeing President Trump supporting our biggest ally, Israel. You're seeing President Trump talk to Vladimir Putin for almost 2 hours, and they both agree that Iran is the enemy and that we do not want Iran throwing in nuclear weapons into Israel, nuclear bombs. We don't want Iran even going and touching Israel ever again. Remember, under Joe Biden, Iran threw the first bomb into Israel ever. Thank God we have Iron Dome. But this is real stuff, guys. This is real stuff. And then, of course, the Yemen's tweeted, and we put this up. Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility. There it is. Breaking news. Justin, Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility for the attack on the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman in the Red Sea. They claim to have launched 18 ballistic and cruise missiles along with many drones at the USS Harry Truman. That's breaking news. But remember what I said. It took them a while to admit that they did it. At first, they said that they didn't do it. They said, oh, no, President Trump is wrong. It barely touched. No, it touched. And we just have the confirmation that 18 ballistic missiles went into the USS Harry Truman. That's an attack on America. That's an attack on us. That's an attack on our military as well. You don't think President Trump is going to retaliate? And people are mad about this, and that's why there's pro-Hamas rallies again? Come on. The majority of the American people are happy that we have a strong commander-in-chief for the first time in 4 years. Remember, he was strong in 2017, but President Trump is even stronger now. And he's really fighting hard for this country. He's really fighting for America first and putting the American people first. And also, he's working with our allies. It's very, very, very important. It's very, very important that ISIS gets knocked out, Al-Qaeda gets knocked out, the Taliban is reduced, and Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigade, Islamic Jihad is reduced, Hezbollah is reduced, and Hamas is gone. We do not want our world controlled by terrorists. Again, as I said earlier, we have illegal Syrian, illegal Afghan, illegal Lebanese refugees right here in the United States. Thomas Homan has called them out. I've called them out. They're right here in Montgomery County where I have a residency here. And every time Thomas Homan takes them out and puts them in jail or puts them on a plane and gets them out of here, nobody should be combating that. Nobody. That was Thomas Homan's job as a border czar. Remember, Kamala Harris was the, quote, border czar, but she did nothing. She didn't even go to the border. I went to the border more times than she did. I went to the border under the Trump administration the first time and under her administration. And it's day and night, day and night. She never really visited the border. Thomas Homan visited the border. Pete Hegseth visited the border. Kristi Noem gets on a horse with a hat on. And she's all geared up. She goes there on the border. Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, goes on the border. Speaker Johnson literally went on the border. President Trump's been on the border. Again, we're seeing a difference in leadership. EPA Director Lee Zeldin, he went on the border. We're seeing a difference in leadership like no one has ever seen before. And it's awesome and it's amazing. So stop combating it. Nobody's listening to it anymore. Stop combating Thomas Homan. Stop saying that he's, quote, breaking the law when he's not. Stop saying that it's a bad thing that Secretary of State Marco Rubio revoked the visa of that crazy moron that started rallies and protests at Columbia University attacking innocent Jews and innocent Christian students. That's crazy that Jewish Voices for Peace would have the audacity to go into Trump Tower, a beautiful building with a beautiful golden lobby that I've been to multiple times, and have the audacity to protest against President Trump in there. They don't even know what they're protesting against. They're protesting for a terrorist. They're protesting for an illegal. They're protesting saying that it's okay that this illegal moron, this 31-year-old illegal moron who wasn't even a student of Columbia University, was putting together protests to hurt innocent Jewish and Christian lives. And I'm an NYU alumni. I saw Israel Apartheid Week. It was disgusting. I saw BDS resolutions being passed, and BDS Week, Boycott, Divest, and Sanction, which states that Israel is an apartheid state, which we know it isn't. I saw the BS. Myself and 4 other colleagues of mine, we combated NYU Apartheid Week. We combated the BDS movement. I was at Towson University this year combating BDS. It's disgusting. And any governor, any mayor, any attorney general that supports illegal immigration, that supports these Gaza encampments, that supports Section 8 housing to harvest illegals should be jailed. I've said this many, many times, and it's the truth. We have had enough of these illegals coming in here and murdering innocent Americans. I think about Rachel Morin's life every day. I think about Lincoln Riley and Jocelyn and all these innocent lives that have been taken by illegals. Kate Steinle. We've yet to pass Kate Steinle's bill in the Senate. I hope that it passes. What happened to Kate Steinle in California was disgusting. Unbelievable. But you want to keep electing the same morons year after year after year. Find new leadership. Put these people in jail. And don't combat Trump's cabinet, his administration. They're working for we the people. That's what you want. That's what we voted for. The mandate. President Trump said it's very, very, very important. Very important. That he listens to we the people. Remember, he said the first 2 years are not as important. It's the first 100 days. That's why his presidential address to the nation and to the world was so important. And how he went through each accomplishment that he did. It's so, so important. I just want to say that while I have been talking, there was a report that JFK Jr. called Joe Biden a traitor that was found in the FBI files. Again, JFK Jr. called Joe Biden a traitor that was found in the FBI files. Also, as I said before, President Trump commented with the JFK files that there was paid attackers, not just one, but there was multiple. Again, a lot of people speculate that LBJ was responsible for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Again, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has looked into the files of his own father's death, and we've all looked and tried to dissect the MLK files. We are waiting the Epstein files. Again, Pam Bondi with FBI Director Kash Patel and Alina Habba, who's the White House lawyer. She also, all 3 of them have said that the Epstein files are coming. They're waiting for the real files, unredacted, and they are all about transparency. I can tell you something about Pam Bondi. She's all about transparency. She wants to show the American people the list. She wants to make sure it's the real list. Kash Patel wants to make sure it's the real list. And Kash Patel is really, really, really cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse. And he's going to find the real corruption that's been going on. As you know, President Trump, he actually exploited Joe Biden for not even being the one to sign those, quote, not executive orders, the pardons, the fake pardons. Again, you can't pardon someone unless they committed a crime. They said that Joe Biden put out these pardons just in case President Trump goes after Liz Cheney, the Unselect Committee, Hunter Biden's family. I mean, this is just insane. So we're finding that they use what they call an auto pen for these pardons. And also reports are finding out that Joe Biden didn't even sign these pardons, that it was through, quote, auto pen, that people such as Adam Schiff signed his own pardon. Dr. Fauci signed his own pardon. Finding that out. We also found out through other reporters, other investigative reporters, that, Hunter Biden says that he's broke, but he's going to, he's going to, or right now he's currently in South Africa with Ellen DeGeneres. And I mean, it's a very expensive resort in South Africa. And also the dinners are very expensive that he's dining with Ellen DeGeneres and Ellen DeGeneres' wife. Yeah, the guy is so broke. Let me tell you, the guy's so broke. And, you know, the investigative reporters saw this. They reported it. They sent it to President Trump. And guess what? President Trump, he got rid of Hunter Biden's Secret Service detail, as well as his sister, Ashley Biden's Secret Service detail. The investigative reporter says, why does Hunter Biden have to have 18 security detail? Why are we, the American people, paying for that? Joe Biden's not the president anymore. Why are we paying for this? Why are we paying for Secret Service to go to this expensive dinner with Ellen DeGeneres and her wife? And why are the American taxpayers paying for Ashley Biden's 13 people, Secret Service agents? That's crazy. The only people now that the only family right now that should have private Secret Service is President Trump's family, such as Eric Trump, Laura Trump, Ivanka, Jared, Don Jr., and his ex-wife, and their 5 children, and Tiffany Trump and her husband, and she's going to be a mother soon. I mean, and Barron should have his own Secret Service as well, which I think he does. I mean, that's the first family. They should be guarded and protected. They've had a lot of threats. The Trump family has had a lot of death threats, not just back then, but in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. I mean, they need it. They need it more than anybody. But the taxpayer dollars should not have to go into Hunter Biden's Secret Service or his sister's Secret Service. And that's the truth. That's the truth. But this is what's been going on. Corruption at the highest level. And like I said, I know some people are skeptical. Pam Bondi, they don't think she's doing a good job. I'm telling you, if she wasn't, Trump wouldn't have picked her. As you know, Trump doesn't keep people around if they don't do the job. I know Pam Bondi, she was my former Florida Attorney General. She did get the job done in Florida for We the People in Florida, and she will get the job for We the People now. And Kash Patel, as we know, he's great. He was part of investigating the Russia hoax with former Congressman Devin Nunes, who he's still very close with. And they're working with DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard to really get these files and this information out there. I do want to say to the American people, please be patient. I know that we've been patient for years, but we have a new administration. We have people that really love this country. We have people that really love We the People, and we have people that are America first. So again, we really, really, really have to trust the process. We do have to trust the process. And coming up at the bottom of the hour, I have a very special guest. This is gubernatorial season, specifically in New Jersey and Virginia. We have a gubernatorial candidate, Dave Larock. He's running for governor of Virginia. He's going to be on audio only. He had an event at 7 p.m., and I'm so happy that he could join us. We will be interviewing all of the gubernatorial candidates as well as the Democrat candidates for governor, as well as for lieutenant governor. I'm also reaching out to the Attorney General of Virginia to have him on, and Damon Galdo and Damon Sherrod, who live in New Jersey. They're working with the people running for governor and lieutenant governor in New Jersey as well. So we got 2 people working with gubernatorial races in Virginia as well as in New Jersey, because as you know, Virginia and New Jersey, they have off gubernatorial years. And in the state of Virginia, part of their law, the governor can only serve for 4 years. He can't serve consecutive years. So Governor Youngkin can only serve 4 years. Then he leaves. If he wants to come back as governor after the following 4 years, he can, but he can't serve 2 terms side by side like in most states. So coming up right after the break, we're going to have gubernatorial candidate Dave Larock from Virginia. And we are back. This is Alexandra Levine with Alexandra Levine Live. Let's show up that flyer again of Mr. Larock. I'm going to read it to our viewers. There we go. Larock priority issue number 12, election integrity and government accountability. Priority issue number 12, strengthen voter ID laws, ban ballot harvesting, and increase government transparency through VA Doge/Inspector General. Well, I agree with Mr. Larock that we need to bring Doge into the state of Virginia. And that being said, we have Mr. Larock on audio. Can we bring him up? And we're working with our producer right now to see if we can hear Mr. Larock. But I can tell you election integrity is something that is very important. I can't hear him. My producer is going to find a way for me to hear him. I personally cut out for 5 seconds. But yeah, as you know, election integrity is something that's very, very important to the state of Virginia. As you know, Virginia unfortunately has an open primary, not a closed primary. We're going to bring Mr. Larock side by side. But unfortunately, I cannot hear him. But before we bring him up, I'm just going to keep talking if we can bring him up. Mr. Larock, if you can put yourself off mute, that would be great. But I'm just going to keep on talking. My producer will let me know through private messaging if it's working or not. Because I'm going to keep talking. So as you know, the state of Virginia has an open primary. They do not have a closed primary. A lot of people were very disenfranchised because they have early voting so many days in the state of Virginia. And I was at a rally for women, Virginia, and unfortunately, there was so many women that came out for, President Trump, but President Trump did not win the state of Virginia like I thought he was going to. I mean, I saw hundreds and thousands of women. And former Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was there. She spoke, and it was just a great experience with a lot of women there. And I said, oh, great. The women are going to tell their husbands to go out and vote. And the numbers were coming in great for early voting for Republicans. And also we had a Senate seat, Hung Chow. He was running as a Republican against the incumbent Tim Kaine. Unfortunately, Tim Kaine did end up beating Hung Chow, but Hung Chow is now working for the White House. But again, if we didn't have early voting on so many days in Virginia, if we didn't have open primaries, I believe that President Trump would have won the state of Virginia. But again, this has to do with the legislators and the legislation in Virginia. So unfortunately, we were supposed to have a red trifecta in Virginia, but it flipped. So now they have a Democrat House, they have a Democrat Senate with a Republican governor. Thank God that nothing can really get through because Governor Youngkin is the governor and he is veto proof and nobody overrides his veto. But if we, God forbid, get a Democrat governor, then Virginia will just go bluer and bluer and it won't change. I mean, it was very scary when Barack Obama won the state of Virginia. It was like the first time in 40-something years for Virginia to go blue. And Northern Virginia, unfortunately, has been going blue and blue and blue and blue and blue over the years with federal government workers. Well, now that Doge has come in, or we're going to get Doge to come in, and they're firing a lot of the government workers, maybe something can actually happen in Virginia. Maybe we can get it red again. Maybe we can push it away from being purple and push it back to red. Because I honestly believe that it's a state that Republicans can win. I believe that oh, there we go. Can we hear? Hi.
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So
awesome.
Do me a favor and take me off video if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, okay.
The lighting in the car
Mr.
here
Sherrod,
isn't too good.
That's okay. Yeah, please take our guest off video. Okay, great. You still there?
I sure am.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Great. We were just talking about you. Yeah, I'm glad that it worked out. So thank you. Again, to my audience, this is Dave Larock. He's a gubernatorial candidate for governor of Virginia, Republican. And we were just talking about, what you're campaigning on, how you want to get rid of the mail-in ballots, how you don't want to have so much early voting happen, how you want to strengthen election integrity in Virginia. Tell my audience more about that.
Yeah, well, you read through the bullet points from my website. Thanks for going there.
Of course.
Probably the most important thing we left off is the need to just go back to paper ballots, like any sensible election should be conducted. These programmable are just
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm driving through Great Falls, and it's a little bit windy here. Again, you gave me plenty of advance notice. I just had no idea that this Fairfax County unit meeting was going to go so long.
That's okay. Hey, you're doing your work.
Yeah.
But keep talking.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Election integrity, very high priority. It brings them back to mind the whole COVID debacle. How, I remember hearing President Trump give his address shortly before COVID, and I just turned to my wife and said, there is no possible way that they can keep this man from winning a second term. He had just done so much for so many people, and yet they rolled out COVID, and our Democrats controlled the legislature, brought in all these ridiculous election laws. You've mentioned we call it 45-day election season now, and that's got to go. I think accommodating people like military and a few others maybe with absentee votes, but we have permanent absentee voting rolls now, and Loudoun County actually sends tens of thousands of absentee ballots out of state to be processed. So it just breaks the chain of custody, and if we're going to ever be able to trust our elections, we're going to have to take that seriously. I'm not sure what the governor or the president can do there, but we've really got to dig in and get some things done.
Well, I can tell you that the president is trying on the federal level to implement photo ID for all 50 states. He wants to have election on the day. He wants to get rid of the mail-in ballots, get rid of all of the early voting that goes on, especially in your state and Pennsylvania and others. But it really has to do with the state level as well. And, if you become governor, you're going to be dealing with, let's say you don't get that red trifecta, you still have a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate. How are you going to work around that? Did we lose you? I think we might have lost him. But yeah, that's a question right now. That is the unfortunate situation in Virginia, that they have a Democrat House and they have a Democrat Senate. Mr. Brock, if you're still there, as my producer said, please, if you can respond to the question. I cannot hear you on my end. But I'm just going to keep going until you come back in, because I cannot hear you on my end. So anyway, so again, my hope, and I'm not trying to be negative, is that the, Virginia Senate and the Virginia House, take back, they come back. They need to come back. And if they don't, then things in Virginia are just going to stay the same, and things cannot stay the same. As I said earlier, President Trump is going on the federal level to implement photo ID in all 50 states, as well as no more early voting. You vote on the day, no more mail-in ballots, and no crazy 45 days of early voting. So I'm just going to keep talking. If Mr. Larock comes back on, that's great. If not, I'm going to pretend like I'm a Virginian, and I'm going to speak for Virginians out there. So I actually have family that live in Alexandria, Virginia. And I can tell you, if Glenn Youngkin didn't win the governorship, they would have left the state of Virginia. Governor Youngkin really won on, the message of education and what was going on in Loudoun County by pushing the CRT and the gender identity stuff. That also had to do with COVID. A lot of kids were homeschooled, and the parents were now for the first time seeing what their kids were being taught in school, and they didn't like it. So they had, concerned parents going to the school board and saying, what the heck is going on? And then under Joe Biden's administration with the former Attorney General Merrick Garland, he actually considered a lot of these parents domestic terrorists. He put them on domestic terrorist watch list. He arrested a father whose daughter was actually raped by a transgender in a bathroom. His daughter was like 12 years old, and she was literally raped by a young boy who claimed to be a girl. That's why you can't have boys dressing up as girls in the girls' locker room and in the girls' bathrooms, because that is subject to rape. Just like you can't have a boy dress up as a woman in the same jail cell as another woman, because they're going to get raped and have kids, and it's going to be insane. So anyway, so Glenn Youngkin, he saw this in Loudoun County. He focused on this in his campaign. And I know for a fact that he's doing everything he can to push back on this CRT and this gender identity curriculum. I can tell you that Glenn Youngkin has implemented the IHRA resolution, literally labeling and also defining the word anti-Semitism as the word should be. Again, a lot of liberal and pro-Hamas groups, they think that anti-Semitism is Islamophobia and all this stuff. I mean, they always try to put some liberal spin into it. And this is where I come in with education, because one of the biggest things that I am implementing, I did in the state of Pennsylvania, Missouri, Arkansas, etc., is to push full Holocaust and full Israel education in all 50 states. And I want it in grades K through 12. And obviously, kindergarten is going to teach a little bit differently than middle school and then high school. And then, of course, on the college level, I am in the process of trying to obtain the 47-minute video of what Hamas did to the 1,200 innocent people that were burned, tortured, raped, and killed. And to bring the entire video to colleges and universities, especially the liberal ones that push the Gaza encampments, that have liberal deans and pro-Hamas presidents and pro-Hamas teachers that are okay teaching propaganda, quote, Palestinian propaganda to the students. And again, there was a Free Palestine rally outside of the White House today. I mean, those kids need that video to know what real genocide is. They said that Israel was committing genocide. No. And again, that idiot at Columbia University, he was calling for the genocide of Jews. That's why his visa was revoked. Any teacher, any student, anybody that calls for the genocide of anybody, their visa should be revoked. They should be fired. Their teaching licenses should be revoked. They shouldn't be deans and presidents of the schools. But that was a big thing that Glenn Youngkin campaigned on. And I know whoever the next governor of Virginia will be, I know they will try to implement the same things that Glenn Youngkin did in regards to combating the CRT, combating the gender identity curriculum, which of course, those are things that we as young people, we don't really need to learn in school. We need to go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. At 3 years old, I didn't take a course, trying to figure out if I was a man or a woman. I mean, I always knew I was a woman. I never had the desire to be a man. My mother always put me in dresses. She never put me in suits. I always had long hair, my whole life. I always wore makeup. So I knew who I was. But to waste our taxpayer dollars on crap education like that is disgusting. And that's why the people of Virginia voted for Glenn Youngkin. But we really have to, again, if we want to move the pendulum to Republican in the next years, if we want to keep the a Republican governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, a Republican attorney general, and if we want to flip the House and the Republican Senate, again, it's about the values. We have to campaign on bipartisan values in order for Republicans to win. And that's what Glenn Youngkin did to win. He campaigned on bipartisan values. He campaigned on education, which is bipartisan. He campaigned on combating anti-Semitism, which is bipartisan. He campaigned on the environment, which is bipartisan. And President Trump endorsed him multiple times. But again, Glenn Youngkin, he took President Trump's endorsement to heart, but he didn't parade it and say, I'm endorsed by President Trump, I'm endorsed by President Trump, because he knew at the end of the day, he personally had to win. And he was his own person. And he was able to cross the aisle and go into Loudoun County, which is a liberal county, go into Fairfax County, which is a liberal county, go to certain counties that he may not win the county, but he needed a certain amount percentage in order to win. And that's how he did it. And I not challenge, but I should say that is the challenge for any Republican running for governor again, is you have to do what Glenn did, and you have to cross the aisle, like Tim Fazanbaker said. You have to be able to go into the Democratic areas, go into those independent areas, go into some liberal counties and pull people and bring them across your aisle, because you need those people in order to win the governorship. As I said earlier, Virginia is not as red as it used to be. We're hoping that it will eventually get more red as the years go by. New Jersey too. I mean, New Jersey's had a horrible governor, Governor Murphy, for the last 8 years. He, in my opinion, he did not win the last election. There was a lot of voter fraud, especially in Bergen County. But hopefully the people of New Jersey, they've hashtag had enough and they'll put a Republican in there. Hopefully the people of Virginia will want to keep that Republican governorship, and hopefully they'll flip back the House and the Senate to Republican. I'm going to check again with our guest if he's back on, because I really want to hear what he has to say. I know the people of Virginia want to hear what he has to say. We have a lot of Virginian constituents that join my show. And like I said, he's just having some audio issues. He just came from an event. He's driving right now, so he could be in some, very bad signaled areas. I know when I'm driving through the mountains, and unfortunately, I can't hear him on my end. He's not disconnected, but I can't hear him on my end. Let me know, audience, if you can hear him on your end. I don't know if he's talking. My producer said he can't hear him either. We will have to bring him back and do a test run with him. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do a test run with him. We always try to have our guests on hours before. Oh, are you back? I hear something creeping in.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, you cut out for a while now. You cut out for a while.
Yeah, I was just about to log out and come back in, but it reconnected. And
okay. Well, hopefully
but I didn't want to.
Yeah,
I didn't want to interrupt you. You're doing such a good job of talking about what's going on in Virginia.
Oh, I was waiting for you to just bounce right on in.
If you keep track of the whole nation as well as you do of Virginia, then boy, you are well informed, and I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, like I said, my family does live in Virginia, so you have constituents. They live in Alexandria. They told me if Glenn Youngkin didn't win, they would have left Virginia because they were not going to live in Virginia with Terry McAuliffe as the governor.
Yeah,
so again, if in your campaign, are you campaigning more like a Glenn Youngkin? Are you campaigning more like yourself? Let's say if you win the governorship, are you going to be more like Glenn Youngkin? Or how do you set yourself apart from Glenn Youngkin?
Well, some of each, really. If I dared to, I'll dare to make a comparison between myself and Donald Trump. A lot of differences, but I am a businessman. I think Trump campaigns like a businessman. It's no baloney. Just say what you mean what you say, and deliver on what you promise. And I was so thrilled after his message to Congress that so many people reacted favorably to that. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. You're just silent.
I'll let everyone know if I can't hear you.
That's okay. Yeah. Now the difference, and I'll just add to what you were saying slightly. And one of the reasons that I really was motivated to jump into this race is I supported the current lieutenant governor wholeheartedly when she ran 3 years ago. So I served portions of Loudoun County, was very engaged in with the parents as this parents' rights movement emerged. Know the parents very personally, the Smiths, whose daughter was abused there, assaulted in school. They've come to me and said, where are our advocates? Where is the lieutenant governor who won? We've reached out. I've reached out to her. I actually presented a bill called Sage's Law, which was just a tremendous opportunity to present the story of a young girl who was groomed into this gender confusion, and that led into different chat rooms and so on. And eventually the story continues that she was sex trafficked on and off for 2 years. So it's just the worst possible story. And, so worked with these people and tried to draw the lieutenant governor into that effort to pass a sensible law to require parents, schools notify parents if kids were experiencing this challenge in their lives, we'll say. And the phone was off the hook. And so there's nothing that turns a supporter into a dissenter, even to the point where I would stand up to run against the lieutenant governor, was to champion these issues that she had run on and find out that the phone is off the hook. It's just totally unsatisfactory. That to me smacks of ambition, desire to stay away from contentious issues. Glenn Youngkin didn't, and he ran and won on that. But when that's the case, I wanted to follow through. The parents wanted to follow through, and they're part of what encouraged me. The folks that called me up and said, Dave, we need a governor that will follow through. Glenn Youngkin did write some good anti-DEI CRT policies, but when you have the budget, the control over the budget that the governor has, you have some teeth. And I was just at this meeting tonight. When are we going to see things like President Trump is doing, where you withhold funding for people who ignore the mandates that he puts forward? I'd like to put forward a day one executive order that would prohibit state money going to any entity through contracting or state agencies or even K-12 education if they are not clearly detaching themselves from this, what is clearly just discrimination on the basis of the person's perceived gender, or if their ethnicity isn't what the LGBT people feel it should be, or then they're discriminated against, and that's really just has to stop. We can't be a state that allows that. So differentiating myself a little bit from the team that won, the attorney general and the governor did some good things, but I'm running against the lieutenant governor because it's just not the case with her. So I'll cut it off there. Maybe let you come in with a question if you have one, Alexandra.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, as you know, President Trump, he is getting rid of the Department of Education. He wants education to go back to the states.
Yep.
So as governor, and I know you kind of touched on that, what do you think you would do differently than what Winston Sears and Glenn Youngkin have done?
Well, that'll be easy because at least the person I'm running against claims to have a track record, and me and many of other people have asked her to show it to us. Lieutenant governor doesn't patron legislation, as you know, doesn't have a voting record except from 20 years ago when she was a delegate. The only bill that anybody showed me was a horrendous anti-gun rights bill. And fortunately, gun rights people have long memories as well. But I'm a strong advocate for school choice. I, along with a team of other hardworking people, passed actual education savings accounts twice in Virginia, only to be vetoed by Governor McAuliffe. And then once when Ralph Northam, who became governor, was presiding over the Senate, he also vetoed another education savings account bill. That was a really heavy lift. Anybody that knows about school choice realizes that it doesn't just help parents that want an alternative education, but through competition, they say a rising tide raises all ships, and it would be a real boost for public education, that competition. So that would certainly be a high priority. But cleaning up you were touching on it, very articulated it very well. The idea that so much money is going toward these ideologies that are very harmful to kids. I mean, if the kids were exposed to, if adults were exposed to what these kids are being exposed to in the classroom, in a work setting, in the work setting, these people would be accused of sexual harassment and they would probably lose their jobs. It's just that bad. It's pornographic material. And as the Supreme Court said, you know it when you see it. Well, this stuff is pornographic or worse, and yet many of these Democrats are demanding that it be there under the ridiculous pretense that it's has some academic value. Not in the world that I live in. So certainly cleaning things up. I think a day one executive order that would just ban this from the public schools, as well as any other entity that does business with the state. That would free up a lot of money. We've actually proposed bringing a Doge system to Virginia, which, I mean, I focused on the last two letters of that: government efficiency. Obviously, you have to execute on that in a department or working through the Inspector General's office. But government efficiency, it takes me back to my background as a businessman. If you do things efficiently, you thrive. If you don't, then you fail. And government just can't be allowed to operate differently. You remember the old saying that government is addicted to OPM, other people's money, and that's just the way it is. And so I just wake up excited, like Tom Holman, the immigration guy. He says, I saw him at CPAC, and aside from some of the more flowery language that he used, he says he wakes up every morning excited for the day, and I'm that way too when I see what's coming out of Washington, and there is not a reason in the world we can't embrace that resurgence of sound governance for the people that we're seeing in Washington. We need to embrace that and bring it to Virginia. We need a governor that will fully cooperate with those efforts, and I don't think we would have that if the current lieutenant governor is successful. She was actually very conspicuously anti-Trump up until recently, kicked him when he was down, went on TV and radio telling him to step aside. And, when somebody sides with the Democrat against a very successful president, when the Democrats are beating him up, voters in Virginia have long memories, and that's going to make it extremely difficult for her to unite the base, which is exactly what we need to do. We need to win over a broad spectrum of voters, and I think Trump has shown us that's possible with the positive reaction to his message to Congress. But if you don't solidify your base first and keep that as a priority and bring out people that don't always vote, then that's a recipe for failure.
Well, let me ask you something, because I agree with you. There has been some tweets, some retweets that she, was very never Trumper. She, did criticize the president a lot, but so did J.D. Vance before he became the U.S. Senator, and then became a U.S. Senator. And turned, did a whole 180, started praising President Trump, and now he's the VP. What if all of a sudden, in her campaign, win some years, she's like a JD Vance. She changes her stance on things. She starts supporting President Trump, starts supporting, his values and his principles. How is that going to affect your race?
Well, I think what really will affect the race is when and if President Trump decides to endorse. I think he's in a real difficult position. I've actually spoken to him through his top level political person. He sees that it's a crowded field. I think it was communicated to me that he knows I've been very supportive of him and loyal to him. Actually did the walk to the Capitol, didn't enter on January 6th, sent a letter to Mike Pence, Vice President Pence, asking him not to certify the election, held Stop the Steal rallies. And I hope that matters to the president. It's behind us now. The Democrats would like to make sure that it's never forgotten, the fiasco, their commission and so on. But hopefully loyalty is going to weigh into the president's decision. And it's loyalty that would not just be fleeting. It would be loyalty to the policies he's bringing forward, and just like his cabinet is very loyal to him, very committed to executing on the mandate that he's been given. But I really didn't track J.D. Vance. I mean, a number of people have kind of turned around. I know back in the day, Ken Cuccinelli was not a supporter of Trump. He was brought into the cabinet in the first administration. He was never technically approved by the Senate, but I guess the circumstances are what make a lot of the difference. As recently as the last couple of days, a message came out of the Sears campaign, Lieutenant Governor, excuse me, saying that that she was more conservative than the president. Now, basically, she's at it again. She's sort of stepping on the president to elevate herself a little bit. And I don't know how much that matters to the president. He's got big shoulders and can let things roll off. But it certainly, I think, sends the message that there's still some kind of competition going on there when there shouldn't be. But we'll see how that plays out.
Most important. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yep.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, what else should we talk about here?
Well, there's one subject that I was talking about that's very near and dear to my heart. So as you know, there was Gaza encampments all over the country. Please educate our audience if there was any Gaza encampments that happened in any universities or colleges where you live in Virginia. But, as governor, I worked with a state senator in Pennsylvania to implement full Holocaust education in his state. I know that the state of Virginia, they do implement Holocaust education throughout the state, but in my opinion, you guys can do better. You guys can really just make it mandated from K through 12. to implement Holocaust and Israel education, bringing more Holocaust survivors to your state, and also having a lot of your students go visit Holocaust museums in Virginia. As the next governor of Virginia, that's something that you would work on me with, to implement that we have full Holocaust and full Israel education through K through 12 in your entire state, like I did in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. I've patroned bans on to work against the boycott, sanction, and divest movement that was probably a couple of years ago. But my faith tells me that we are to support the nation of Israel, and I am 100% for that. But you raised the question of these universities. Anybody that, Trump, I think, is referring to these people as, well, some of them as terrorists. I don't think that applies to every protester necessarily, but they shouldn't be doing that on campuses, promoting violence. We respect different viewpoints, but if you're inciting violence against any person, that should be breaking, or should be classified as a violation of school policies. They should be tossed out of the universities, and I'm certainly fine with them tossing them out of the country if they have gotten to the level where they are promoting violence. Those are not people that should be here as guests and taking advantage of our education system.
Has there been any pro-Hamas rallies at any colleges, universities in your state of Virginia?
There have. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. And I think the governor is acting against that. But again, this is not new. I mean, this anti-Semitism has been going on for a long time.
Oh.
And we're supporting these indoctrination centers when we give money to these higher education. I mean, University of Virginia, I sent one son there. It's a great university, but it's been so taken over by liberals that it's hard to recognize it. And this is, a university was formed by Thomas Jefferson, and yet they promote the most absurdly liberal viewpoints and actually punish people that don't go along with it. So it's off the rails. And again, taxpayers should not be funding that. It's one thing if people get bad ideas at a private college, then hopefully the marketplace will reject that, but certainly not be funded by taxpayer dollars. But as far as the programs, education that you are recommending, absolutely would wholeheartedly support that. And it's a great idea. Honestly, I haven't heard it suggested before you just described it, but we have to have, people have to be immersed in the truth. I'm going to ask you just kind of get a little less serious for a moment, Alexandra, but one of my favorite movies, and I tell you, it moves me emotionally, is a movie called Freedom Writers. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I have seen that movie. Yes.
It's a spectacular movie, isn't it? And it's this inner city, these kids that think life has been terrible, and it justifies them being violent toward each other. And the teacher, Hilary Swank, I think, introduces them to a Holocaust survivor, and I think it's based on a true story.
It is,
and they just appreciate that's the what these people have been put through, which makes their own struggles, I think, seem like something that they can overcome. So again, the central theme of it is, well, a couple different things going on, but it uses I think it was Anne Frank that they actually brought in to tell her story, and it really changed these people's lives. So sort of a little bit of an example from Hollywood of what should be going on a larger scale, I think, in the colleges and universities.
I agree, and I'm a big proponent of having the colleges and universities, teach Holocaust education, teach putting Holocaust movies such as Schindler's List, The Boy with the Striped Pajamas, and not just for a week or 2 weeks. Do it for at least a year or two. In the state of Florida, we did a whole 2 years of the Holocaust from grade 6 to 8 when I was in middle school. And we saw some of the most graphic videos alive, and we brought Holocaust survivors in too. And I have a lot of Holocaust survivor friends that I'm still very connected with. Sammy Simon is one of them from New York. He always calls me up and he goes, Alexandra, I would love to visit all the universities and the middle schools and the high schools. And he can do like 7 to 10 lectures in one day. He's got a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
And what I love about him is he doesn't just focus on his story, he focuses on the actual Holocaust, which is what a lot of young people don't know about. And
Yeah.
again, we have to get rid of all the propaganda. We have to get rid of all these pro-Hamas teachers that end up in the teaching system, like they do here in Montgomery County, Maryland, because we have teachers that are part of CARE, which is a terrorist organization that teach in Montgomery County schools. And it's disgusting because they're just going to spew out their propaganda and their bias.
Yeah, it defies logic how the Democrats who profess tolerance can be such totally irrational on this issue that we're talking about, the treatment of Jewish people and the abuse of Jewish people, when it is just so far removed from any kind of tolerance. I mean, trying to classify the aggressors who just committed the atrocities that they did on Israeli soil as the victims, it just so juxtaposes reality that it's hard to get your arms around it, isn't it?
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you, Dave, and I talked about this in the beginning of our segment, is unfortunately you have a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate. How are you going to get us back to having that full trifecta that Glenn Youngkin was supposed to? Or if God forbid, I'm not trying to be negative, but if God forbid you can flip it and you still have that Democrat House and that Democrat Senate, how are you as governor going to implement what you want to implement?
Yeah, well, we hope to flip the House. That's going to be a heavy lift because they refer to the tendency for voters to elect a Democrat governor following the election of a Republican president. So they call that the Virginia curse or whatever. But if there's anything that can break that curse, it is sensible policies. I think Governor Bob McDonald was elected after a Republican president because he just brought forward rational proposals, and one of the things he ran on in tough economic times was Bob's for Jobs was his motto. Excuse me. Governor Gilmore, and I am following a long list of people who have sworn to be dedicated to abolishing Virginia's most unpopular tax, which is a car tax. It's an annual penalty for owning personal property, a vehicle, and some other things in Virginia. People hate it, and I'm optimistic that when we start uncovering the waste and abuse of the funds that could be repurposed for productive uses, that we can apply that toward abolishing the car tax. It sounds a bit impossible and maybe like campaign rhetoric, but I'm willing to dig in and do that. And that is what is going to draw people out of the woodwork to come and vote Republican. I think that good governance is what people are starved for. I met a gentleman at a gun show, and this is one of my favorite anecdotes that will be for a little while. And he came up to me and said, I haven't voted for 69 years. That's almost 7 decades. But he said, I came out to vote for Trump, and I'm glad I did. Does that encourage you a little bit?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. It's hard times like we are experiencing now. The fallout from the Biden, Pelosi, Kamala Harris days, and it makes people realize how bad it can get if you keep putting these Democrats back in there. I'm
It's
not
true.
sure.
We don't want a McAuliffe type in there. We don't want another Ralph Northam type in there. I mean, been there, done that.
Yep.
Thank God we have Terry McAuliffe, but you don't want a socialist Democrat. I honestly believe, especially with the win of President Trump, even moderate Democrats are going to start to change their party to Republican because they're seeing that the Democrat Party is being hijacked by a bunch of leftist lunatics and progressives, and the majority of the country doesn't support that. The transgender, for example, that's a leftist lunatic, progressive group.
And we're turning the corner with that, aren't we?
Yeah, it only consists of less than 1% of the population, but yet it's the minority trying to be the majority, and people screaming racism. I think the people just had enough. I really do.
Yeah. I've never liked the saying, it's the economy's stupid, but you know what it implies is that at the end of the day, people will vote their purse. And, when they're paying, every time you go to the pump, you see how much more a gallon of gas costs you buying, food, just things, the cost of living reminds people of what happens when you consistently elect Democrats. Now Fairfax and Loudoun counties are very affluent, so there's probably a little more tolerance there because they can endure the bumpy, the high inflation times a little bit better. But eventually, it affects people. It affects their families, and you just start to realize what it limits what you can accomplish with the take home pay that you have. So unfortunately, things sometimes have to get worse before they get better. I
Exactly.
think that's why the president has the mandate that he does. Things got pretty bad under Joe Biden, and it was so obvious. So obvious, as you had articulated so well as I was listening to you. I didn't really want to jump in. You were doing such a great job.
Oh, you're sweet. No, I wanted you to. But we do have just a couple minutes left. I do want you to tell my audience how we can follow you, and please tell us any upcoming events that you're having, whether it's a campaign or political event, or if you're doing a town hall with the other candidates. Please let my audience know.
Yeah, well, thank you for that opportunity. So right now we're in the grind of about a week and a half to file or submit 10,000 plus, more like 12 or 13,000 ballot petition signatures. So I jumped in this race late. I just realized that I didn't think we were tracking toward a solid win in November. So we go to our website. It is Dave Larock, FORVA, Dave Larock, LAROCK 4VA. You can download a petition, and if people are registered voters in Virginia, there's instructions there to print them, have them notarized, and then mail to us, and that'll help us hit our mark as far as the numbers. Obviously, contributions are always helpful. It takes a lot of money just to mobilize a campaign and put together a website and all. But really, our next big milestone is to hit the petition signatures number, and then show the president that how serious we are by raising money to start to run the primary, which would be the next leg of the campaign, going from April 3rd to June 7th, I think, might be June 17th. A little bit late now, so I'm a little frazzled. But that unfortunately, it takes money to run a campaign. So really would like to bring a positive vision. People go to that website, and I dare anybody to go compare the Winsome Sears website, who's kind of the main contender, endorsed by the governor. Her website is just glitzy glamour pictures with all sorts of celebrities and so on, and our website is basically policy that we think we needs to come.
And what's the name of your website again? Say it one more time.
Yes. So it's Dave Larock, LAROCK, 4 spelled out FOR, VA.com.
Awesome. And I see you also have another social media on X at Dave Larock for VA.
That's right. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry we had some tech issues, but we will definitely be in touch. I would like to offer you another interview so we could do the full 25 minutes without interruption.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. Sure. Look forward to that, Alexandria. Thank you for pushing out so much truth. You play such a necessary role in helping people understand what's going on around us, and the media does not help with that very often, or sometimes. So I appreciate the job you're doing. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you so much. And like I said, we are conservative media. We are independent media. We are not the mainstream media. We are not bought and owned and paid for by the mainstream media. We are our own entity. We are an LLC. Yeah. But we are going to be continuing with this gubernatorial candidate cycle. We will have, as I said, I've reached out to all the gubernatorial candidates on the Republican side and the Democratic side, including the lieutenant governor. Please stay tuned with Alexandra Levine Live, as you will get to know your candidates, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and so forth.
Great. Now, Alexandra, you may want to mute them when they're in the green room waiting to come on, because if they hear you, the Democrats hear you blasting out the truth like you are, they're gonna run high. They are really gonna run high.
True.
All right, let's careful with. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye now. Yep.
Bye. And everyone, that was Dave Larock. He is running for governor. He needs signatures in order to get on the ballot. Please go to Dave Larock for VA.com. That's Dave, Larock for VA.com. You can also look him up. There you go. Thank you. On X at Dave Larock for VA. That's DAVELAROCK for VA. And hopefully I didn't freeze. And somebody, of course, just called me when I told them not to. And we're going to end the show right then and there because I'm frozen. And again, this has been a great hour. I am just going to put up, without my face showing, the GoFundMe for conservative. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to take myself off camera. There we go. I'm going to take myself off because I'm frozen because somebody called me when I told them not to. GoFundMe, Conservative Corner host. As you know, our good friend Seth Eisenberg, he has been in the hospital for over a month. He had a very bad cut on his foot that got incredibly infected. He's had 5 surgeries on his foot. He almost lost his toes. He's at a VA hospital right now in West Virginia, and our hearts and prayers go out to him and his full recovery. He will be on our network. He is a part of the America's Pulse Network. Conservative Corner will be on from 7 to 9 p.m. every Sunday night, and we will fill you in on when he is coming back. But please go to the GoFundMe Conservative Corner host, GoFundMe.com/help /Jonas/Eisenberg/overcome/health.crisis. We will be putting out that link as well, so you guys can see it. And also, last before we go, my friend Kim Stansberry, let's put up her flyer for her event. There we go. Kimberly Stansberry for County Executive. Join us for the Public Safety Over Politics, March 21st, 6 to 9 p.m. at the Bowman, 9306 Hartford Road. Purchase or donate at electkimstansberry.org. Please click on the QR code. Her event is this Friday. It is going to be a packed house. Seats are filling up, and we're not waiting until the last minute here, guys. Please go and get your ticket. It's $60 for dinner. That includes everything. You're getting a 3-course meal. You're getting fish. You're getting chicken. You get a pasta dish. You're getting salad. You're getting cake. Oh my God. I mean, this is better than any event that I've ever been to. I mean, the woman is actually serving you. It is not buffet. It is a sit-down dinner with bread and drinks, and it's going to be amazing. Please come to the Bowmans. We love the Bowmans because they support conservative candidates, but also we love the Bowmans. I've done a lot of business with them. Their food is phenomenal, and people just keep coming back for more. Again, go to this website, click on the QR code, Kim Stansberry for Baltimore County Executive, and purchase or donate at electkimstansberry.org. Again, everybody, thank you so much. This has been a great 2.5 hours, great impactful show. Please follow us at America's Pulse Network at Rumble. Please follow us on X at America's Pulse Network. You can please, we have massive a plethora of different shows that are coming on. Like I said, the Conservative Corner. We also have the Jersey Shore with my friend Damon Galdo. Please reach to him at Damon Galdo on X. Please like and share the Jersey Shore. Please like and share Alexandra Levine Live. You can also follow me, Alexandra Levine, on Facebook at Alexandra Levi 20 on X, at Air Levine 85 on Instagram, at Air Levine 85 on True Social, and at Levine Consulting on YouTube. And the reason you listen and the reason you watch is you are no idiot.
America's Pulse Network. The mainstream media is bought and paid for. The truth is twisted to fit their agenda. But America is waking up because podcasts are the future for trusted media. Welcome to the America's Pulse Network. It is a network built by patriots that upholds the Constitution. The America's Pulse Network stands for God, truth, and the America First movement. There is no corporate propaganda, no government spin, just real news, real talk, and real voices fighting for faith, freedom, and the future of this great nation with common sense. Here are some of America's Pulse Network podcasts. Alexandra Levine Live, hosted by Alexandra Levine. Jersey Shore podcast hosted by Damon Galdo. The Conservative Corner hosted by Seth Eisenberg. APN's The Pulse hosted by Alexandra, Damon, Elena, and Seth. So tune into America's Pulse Network on the following social media platforms: X/Twitter, Rumble, Truth Social, Facebook, and YouTube. Join the revolution. Because the pulse of America beats for God and country. America's Pulse Network is for faith, family, freedom, and truth.